Hey everybody, it's Brooke with the Buttered Home and welcome to my messy kitchen. Today we have a real treat for you. We are kicking off this month with one of our best basic recipes that you'll want to keep in your home cook's arsenal to have forever. Back in 2018, my love for my Instant Pot is what led me to start the Buttered Home, and this is one of the recipes that helped get me there. So this is all of the things you love in a homemade marinara sauce that would normally steep on your stove for hours and hours and hours. But the Instant Pot, like so many other things, makes it fast, easy, and you don't lose any quality of the flavor of what you're cooking. So today we're throwing it back to 2018 because we needed a video. And it's such a great recipe to share over and over and over again to show you how to make our Instant Pot marinara sauce. So stay with us. Okay, so we have our pot, our liner, fitted in our Instant Pot. We're going to turn that to the saute function. That automatically sets for 30 minutes. You really won't need a whole 30 minutes to do just what we prep this for. And it's going to make a loud beep. Mine does anyway whenever it starts to heat up. So what the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put in probably about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in the bottom of our pan. Now a quick tip with these is before you start throwing stuff in, you want to give that just a minute to heat up. It really doesn't take long, but you do want your oil heated up so that you're not, because it takes it a little longer to heat up if you throw your vegetables on in there. Now, one of the things that you'll start to see as it heats up, as the oil will sort of start to separate and kind of spread out in the bottom of your pan. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add in 1 medium onion that I have chopped up already. And let me see if I can get it all in there. Now I am using fresh herbs from my herb garden today, but you can use dried. Just know that if you use dried, you're going to use about half of the amount that I'm giving today because dried herbs are stronger than fresh herbs. So to our onion, we're also going to add in 2 to 3 tablespoons, and Big D loves garlic, so I'm going on the heavier side of minced garlic, and we're just going to stir that up. Now as our pot starts to heat up, we're just going to saute and sweat the garlic out with the onions, and it'll all start to come together. Make sure my pot is getting hot, and it is, but I think it's simply because I am cooking on camera that it's taking a little longer than normal. Imagine that. Now before I have somebody tell me that my spoon is making too much noise, because they will, I'm going to get a wooden spoon so that it's not quite as loud, because my microphone is right here. All right, so we're just going to saute these just until they're tender, which I kind of go for a little, not all the way tender, because I've already added the garlic in there. I don't want the garlic to burn. So just until those onions are almost all the way sweated out. And if you wanted to, you could add a little salt to kind of help that process along, but we want to season in layers. So if you do add salt like I just did, just do just a tad to help sweat those onions down and soften them just a bit. Now we're going to talk about our herbs. This recipe calls for 1 to 2 tablespoons of chopped basil and 1 to 2 tablespoons of chopped rosemary. Like I said before, I'm using fresh out of my garden, but if you can use dried. So if you do use dried, you only want to go to about a half a tablespoon or a tablespoon of those, because dried herbs are a lot more pungent. Now I'm just going to show you a real quick trick on how to chop these safely. So I'm going to tear off some basil leaves from my basil plant. And I keep them in a tight little package. And if you're using bigger basil leaves, you can roll them up with your fingers and then carefully just slide your knife through them. And it makes just a nice little chiffonade or ribbon. Then you can take that one step further and turn them around and just run your knife just for a nice rough chop through them. Rosemary has a really woody stem. And it has a real tender top usually, so I will pull off that top and then find the woody part with my fingers and hold it, take my other hand and kind of brush those down, and then I'll use my fingers to strip the rosemary right off of that woody stem. You do not want that woody stem. If you do put that woody stem in something, just make sure that you put it in a little sachet or something just for flavoring, because it does have flavor. Or, you know, you can just fish it out with a spoon. The last thing you want is for somebody to kind of bite into that. All right, so we're good and tender. I can smell the onions and the garlic, and they have turned soft on me. So now what we want to do is I'm going to turn the pot off. See, I told you we wouldn't need that 30-minute. We wouldn't need that 30-minute saute time. And then we have 2 cans of crushed tomatoes. Yes, you can use blanched fresh tomatoes if you want, but I am showing the original recipe because if you want to make this in February and you don't have fresh blanched tomatoes, you're going to need cans of crushed tomatoes. And make sure that you've got the kind that are not seasoned and don't have any extra sodium, because you want this to be as pure as it can be. So we're just going to stir that into our onion and garlic mix. And then we are going to add in our herbs. Pretty. And if you like a stronger herb taste, feel free to add more. And then we want to add in about 2 tablespoons of parsley, and I'm using dried because my parsley plant is just not putting out this year. We've had a lot of rain here lately, and I really just think that it just kind of almost drowned. So we're going to stir those in. And I should have worn my apron. Anytime I'm dealing with tomatoes, I always get it all over me. Tomatoes or ketchup, you name it. It gets all over me. Now, the tomatoes have liquid in them, right? But because we're using the Instant Pot, we're going to add in about a half a cup of water. The water helps create the steam required that you might not get from the crushed tomatoes. Anytime you cook anything in your Instant Pot, you're going to need at least half a cup of water to create that steam. If you are making tomato-based dishes, if you do not add the water, you're more likely to get the burn message on this thing. So always add at least a half a cup of water. All right, now we're going to add just a little bit of salt. Probably about a half a teaspoon. Then we're going to add in about 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And here's my thinking behind this, okay? You can season this again when it gets done after you taste it. You cannot always take seasoning away. So be frugal with the salt and pepper, because you can add that later. And then we are going to add in about 2 teaspoons of crushed red pepper flakes. This gives it not really spice, but just that little bit of something that you can't quite put your finger on that makes it lots better. All right, so our unit is off. We've got all of our components inside. So we're going to place our lid on, and then we are going to set this to pressure cook, and then we are going to set it for 60 minutes. That's 1 hour, 1 whole hour. Now, when this gets done, we're going to let the pressure release naturally for probably about 15 to 20 minutes, and then I will open this vent and carefully remove any remaining steam, and then I'll stir it, taste it, season it again, and we should be good to go. And we'll come back and we'll show you the finished product. So, y'all don't go away. We'll be back in just a minute. Okay, everybody, we finished our 1 hour cook time in the Instant Pot, and I know it's a little dark, so I'm going to tilt it so you can kind of see maybe a little bit better. Maybe my light will pick that up, but it's a beautiful, rich, dark, delicious sauce, and I've got some on my spoon. Now I'm going to taste it, and it needs just a tad of salt. It's plenty spicy enough, but it needs just a little bit of salt, so maybe like a half a teaspoon is what I'm going to put in. Now, and I don't know if you can tell from the video because, you know, it's a little dark in my home kitchen because this is a home kitchen. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to take about 2 tablespoons of butter and drop it in and just mix it up. And when that butter melts, it's going to make it shiny and pretty and glossy. So it adds kind of a visual aesthetic to the sauce to make it look, you know, a little more appetizing, and not, because sometimes the crushed tomatoes can get kind of, I don't know what other word I'm looking for, but they look kind of matte. So by doing this, it gives it kind of a glossy, beautiful sheen. And y'all, you cannot tell me that this would have been any better had it been cooked all day on the stove. I mean, really, I can't tell a difference. Can't tell a difference. Now, one thing I want to discuss really quickly is, depending on the day or the time of year, and the tomatoes that you use. So if you use fresh tomatoes, you're going to find they have a little more water in them. And if you get certain brands of the crushed tomatoes, they'll be a little more watery. So when this comes out, sometimes it can be a little thin. Today I used the Cinto, I think it was Cinto or Cinto, however you say it. And my consistency is perfect. It's saucy, it's thick, it's just like I want it. Now, if I wanted it a bit thinner, I could add some more water to it. Taste it again, make sure it doesn't need more seasoning. If it was too thin, then this is the trick. This is potato flakes. This is just the instant potato flakes, and we don't have to use them today. I brought them out just so that you could see that if it was a little watery, because, you know, sometimes when you make homemade marinara, you never know what it's going to be like. So if it's watery, you can add just these by like the teaspoon until it thickens up. They won't taste like potatoes, I promise. But that is a good non-flavored thickening agent where you don't have to make like a slurry or anything like that that can make your sauce more bitter. This adds nothing but thickness to the sauce. So potato flakes are a good thickener when it comes to that. I'm going to turn the camera around and we're going to talk a little bit about storage for this and all of the different ways that you can use it. So stay with me. Okay, so I got out a glass bowl because the light's better this way. Just so you can see me like just put it into the glass bowl. And to me, this is the perfect consistency. It is delicious and beautiful and crimson, and it's all of the things that you want in a homemade marinara sauce. I mean, it really is. You can add more or take away the seasonings, what you like in it. You can add Parmigiano Reggiano Parmigiano. I can't even, don't. You know, if you're Southern, you should not speak Italian or French. And I'm talking to me. So you can add Parmesan cheese to it if you want to. There's all different kinds of things that you can do to make it different and add your own spices. But this, like so many other of our recipes, is a good basic place to start if you wanted to try your hand at your very own homemade marinara sauce. And if you're like me and you don't have time to stay with it all day long, so this Sunday sauce or marinara sauce is good with everything. You can use it as a dipping sauce. You can use it as your pasta sauce. You can use it in tomato gravy. Yeah, you can. You sure can. So there's no limit to what you can do with this, and this is a good staple to have. Now, I've brought out a couple of things because I like to make this up in batches, okay? And I will sterilize jars, and then when it comes to room temperature, or if it's hot, I'll pack it in jars and put the lids on just finger tight and let them sit on the counter and seal themselves on the counter till they're completely cool. Then I freeze them. And I talked about this before. Yeah, I could do a water bath. I could can them, but let's just be honest. I'm not going to do that because I'm lazy. And so freezing them just like this, canned, is just as good, and they'll last like 6 to 8 months in the freezer. And all you do is before you leave for work or before you leave to do whatever you got to do for that day, just set one out on the counter and let it thaw at room temperature. Now, I probably would put a towel or something underneath it because it's going to sweat. But I keep these. See, these have been in my freezer. They got to go back in my freezer. So I'm going to save some of this, and we're going to have it for our supper tonight because it's so good fresh. But if you freeze it, it's just as good frozen when you freeze it. You won't be able to tell a difference in the taste at all. So what's left, what I don't reserve for our supper tonight, I'm going to can this way and pop it in the freezer probably before I go to bed. Let it cool real good. You don't ever want to freeze it when it's hot. So just keep that in mind. So for this homemade marinara recipe, it can be found over at our website at thebutteredhome.com. We would love for you to go over there and get your free printable recipe. No charge to you. We love doing this. I missed my calling as a teacher because I really didn't think about home ec. I probably could have taught a home ec class. But I'll just be honest. I like my kids. I like my kids. I don't know that I could have taught other people's kids. So I'm probably doing just what I was meant to do at every stage that I was meant to do it in my life. Plus, this is so much more fun because here at the Buttered Home, we get new cooks learning and old cooks falling in love with cooking again. And that is, I think, one of the things that I was meant to do in this life. So we are happy to do that with you, and we're very happy that you have joined us tonight, and we hope that you will every Monday night from now on. As usual, if you're not already, make sure that you're following us on all of our social channels. We have a really good time, different content over at Instagram versus Facebook, so you want to make sure that you're checking those as often as you can, and invite a friend to like us on those platforms too. It means a lot to me. The more eyes that we can get on our stuff, the more people who can find their love of cooking for the first time or again. And as always, if you want all of our videos in one convenient place, head over to YouTube and search for The Buttered Home, And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so that you can be notified when we drop new videos like this one. Y'all stay with us. We've got some really good, easy, basic staple recipes for you this month, and we're gonna have a really good time doing it. So you don't wanna miss a thing. And as always, from the butter at home to your home, we sure love you. Bye.